Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. June 6th, 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphics, not showing anything. We've got no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere around the state. South Central Alaska or Southern Alaska, advisory free, warning free for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Definitely there with a high pressure and fairly light winds. And also for the northern areas, interior, nothing going on as well that would warrant out any advisories. And from there, looking at satellite imagery, you still have that persistent, nearly stationary cold upper low right over the Bering Strait, kind of between the Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula, and just north of St. Lawrence Island, keeping afternoon temperatures in the mid to upper 30s across that area. Savunga and Tin City, Nome in the mid to upper 30s this afternoon, with some pretty good shower activity and gusty winds going associated with it, a little more extensive than it was a day or so ago. Elam picked up 0.3 of an inch of precipitation in the 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon, and Unalakleet picked up 1/4 of an inch. Stebbins about 1/10 of an inch there. Stebbins and St. Michael in that area, with lighter showers in across the Yukon Delta, anywhere from just a few hundredths, maybe 500ths of an inch in some areas, and then pretty much cuts off, just clouds in over the Kuskokwim Delta, but pretty gusty winds out of the southwest. Bethel had a peak wind gust of 35 miles an hour, so that's a pretty active low there over the Bering Strait, kicking the winds up. Iliamna looking at west winds gusting to 30 miles an hour today, while Kodiak Island, you can see clear skies there, and northwest winds also gusting about 31 miles an hour. Temperature is 67 degrees. And again, clear skies. Clear skies, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet. A few Q popping up over the Talkeetnas, Copper River Basin, especially the eastern Copper River Basin, getting a few more clouds, and also showers developing there in the Tanana Valley. In fact, a pretty good shower moved into Fairbanks and kicked the winds up. They had a gust to 32 miles an hour associated with a shower. Could be some isolated thunderstorms starting to develop there as well. And also to the southwest of Arctic Village, some buildups you can see popping up in the afternoon. Due to the afternoon heating, temperatures rising into the mid 70s or lower to mid 70s up over the eastern interior there, with mid to upper 70s popping up over the Susitna Valley, with Big Lake Big Lake and Willow both had 78 at mid-afternoon today, while Talkeetna had 75 degrees and lower to mid 70s the Kenai Peninsula. Also up around Fairbanks, 72 before the showers moved in. And Seward 70 degrees, even with a south wind at about 20 miles per hour. So pretty mild there. Cooler in Prince William Sound, even though mostly sunny. Valdez about 61. And lower 70s showing up areas of the Copper River Basin as well. Cooler back to the west there with more clouds, coast to the upper low. And 40s or 30s for the Arctic coast. Warmer though for the North Slope. Panhandle still seeing shower activity with weak systems, weak upper level troughs. And picked up about heaviest up in the north. Haines had nearly half an inch of precipitation in the last 12 hours, and Juneau picking up about 1/4 of an inch, as did Cake and Klawock picking up 0.2 of an inch. So still showers. I thought they would have tapered off a little more than they did, but still hanging on there. Out in the Bering Sea, just a lot of cloudiness. No big storms. Main feature the low over the northern Bering there toward the Bering Strait, and but there is you can see the cloud shield with the next system there south of Adak pushing northeastward. Otherwise today it looked like some sun breaks there for Atka and Adak and Amchitka, and maybe not so much for the eastern Aleutian areas, but south of the Alaska Peninsula saw most of the sunshine today, and central Bering Sea as well. Otherwise, looking at the chart today, there's that surface reflection of the upper level low just south of the Bering Strait there, and areas of rain and drizzle fog with that, and showers, light showers in toward the Kuskokwim Mountains. Otherwise clear Kuskokwim Valley, central interior. And again, showers starting to pop up slowly. Not to the extent that this chart shows, a little overdone compared to, at least at this time. They may get a little more extensive here in the next few hours with the cloudiness and isolated thunderstorms as well. Showers continued over the Panhandle. And then the gradient on the south side of that low, and then the high to the south there, south of the eastern Aleutians, again, kicking those winds up across the Kuskokwim Delta, Bethel, Iliamna Lake, and Kodiak with those gusty winds, but light winds over the Aleutians, southern Bering Sea, dry conditions, areas of sunshine. You can see the rain shield pushing up toward the central Aleutians, and for tonight, that warm front will spread some rain up into the Adak-Atka area. Otherwise, the ridge axis shifts a little farther north into the southern Bering, south central Bering Sea, and light winds for the Fox Islands, maybe some clearing, maybe some low clouds and fog as well. Same thing for the Pribilofs, low clouds and fog possible anywhere over the Bering Sea with that light wind pattern and the ridge in over the area. And then showers, maybe the Talkeetnas, possibly in the Susitna Valley, down into northern Kenai Peninsula, on up to the central Alaska area, there to the maybe eastern or to the Arctic Village area. Otherwise, low clouds and fog for the Arctic coast, North Slope, and possible IFR with that. Also off the Panhandle, looking at low clouds and fog and lower flying conditions, but it looks like it should dry out. Showers should end with a low pulling off into the British Columbia, and then that much weaker one staying far enough off the coast. Still a risk of a shower or two for Yakutat with a weak trough there. But taking a look at Monday, winds start to diminish. You won't see the winds you saw today for Kodiak. In fact, you'll notice them dropping off this evening, but won't end completely. But tomorrow probably coming variable in the afternoon, just not enough gradient there to overcome what sea breeze would kick in. Probably see winds go east at Kodiak State Airport. Otherwise, showers, a little more in the way of cloudiness and showers over the interior now, especially in the afternoon hours with a little bit cooler temperatures, but thunderstorms possible. Again, over the mountainous terrain, western Alaska range, up in the interior there. And then that system still west of trying to push into Norton Sound. And so it's going to stay cool and unsettled there with areas of showers, rain, light rain, fog, drizzle. Definitely now starts to push into the Kuskokwim Valley across the Kuskokwim Mountains there. Risk of a shower for the Panhandle, otherwise partly to mostly sunny, hopefully. And Arctic Coast North Slope not looking bad there with afternoon clearing. And a little breezy though, winds picking up out of the east-northeast, a little bit tighter gradient there. So probably looking at some brisk wind advisories on the eastern Arctic coast. And then on Tuesday, you're looking at brisk wind advisories on the central and eastern Arctic coast with 25 to 30 knot winds, 25 knot winds out of the east, even on the west side there, but then light winds, north slope. Chance of showers along that trough axis, though, from the central and eastern Brooks Range and the low center near Arctic Village, and then the trough extending back could bring a chance of showers all the way out to the western Arctic coast, Wainwright to Point Lay. And then a break over the northwest interior, Noatak Valley, mostly sunny, into the Kobuk-Koyukuk Valley, and afternoon thunderstorms possible now over toward the 40-mile country, upper Tanana Valley, and areas of rain, quite an area of moisture pushing in, that low sliding northeastward or east-northeast, just south of the Alaska Peninsula. Heaviest rainfall will be over Kodiak Island, and should be a good shot, though, coming into the southern Kenai Peninsula and into Kamishak Bay, northeast Bristol Bay, with periods of rain, light times and cloudy skies for the Kuskokwim Valley, Cook Inlet, Madanuska-Susitna Valley, cloudy with a chance of rain up to the Alaska Range, and then that area of precipitation extending northwestward there across the lower Yukon River Valley into the Seward Peninsula. High pressure, though, off the southeast coast. Call it partly to mostly sunny or just flat out sunny, light winds, warmer temperatures, high pressure out over the Bering Sea, or over the southern Bering Sea, centered over the west central Aleutians. Taking a look at the low temperatures for tonight, 45 to 50 central interior, 45 to 52 for south central Alaska, lower 40s down toward Homer, upper 40s Kodiak Island, lower to mid 40s for Bristol Bay, and mid 40s for the Panhandle, upper 30s, lower 40s for the Brooks Range, and then upper 20s North Slope and central and eastern Arctic coast near the Frost Point on the west side. Lower 30s again, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, near 40 for the Pribilofs, and then the highs tomorrow in the mid-70s there for the greater Fairbanks area and toward Northway, even the Yukon Flats, lower to mid-70s, and a little cooler south central Alaska, but still pushing up towards 70 in the Susitna Valley, and 50s, mid-50s to lower 60s for the southeast coast, and highs in the 50s Bristol Bay, and 30s and lower 40s for the North Slope and Arctic coast. Mid-30s still for the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island. Call it 42 for Nome, near 50 or just under for the Aleutians. Lows the following morning, mostly in the upper 30s to mid 40s over much interior Alaska, lower 30s in the Arctic coast. 2, again, the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, getting just under the frost point. Upper 30s the Pribilofs, lower 40s the Aleutians, and lower to mid 40s there for the Alaska Peninsula. And then highs on Tuesday afternoon, cooler now up over the eastern interior in the 60s, lower 60s for the Tanana Valley to near 70 toward Eagle, and a little warmer for the Panhandle, call it 65, mid 60s, and lower 50s Kodiak Island, upper 30s for the Arctic coast, and mid 40s to near 50 for the Bering Sea Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic Monday morning. IFR, Arctic coast there from about, say, roughly Point Lay or so eastward, and then VFR for the Brooks Range on down into the central interior, right on down Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island. Marginal VFR slips on up into the North Gulf Coast, eastern North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and across the Panhandle. Band of IFR pushing eastward now to the across the Yukon River into the Kuskokwim Mountains, spilling into the Kuskokwim Valley with marginal VFR down across Bristol Bay, Lake Iliamna. IFR, Adak and Atka. VFR, Pribilofs to the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, and then back to Shimei and Attu. For the afternoon, IFR and the increase out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians to the Pribilofs, and just about all the Bering Sea up through the Bering Strait, Norton Sound, Yukon Kuskokwim Delta, Nunivak Island, on up into the Chukchi Sea. Northwest coast, though, from about Kivalina on around to, say, Aliktok there, VFR, area patch of marginal VFR for the North Slope, Eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Otherwise, VFR, Central Eastern Interior, marginal VFR now pushing into western Cook Inlet and possibly the western Susitna Valley, hanging up though along the Alaska Range. VFR Copper River Basin, marginal VFR into possibly Alyeska and more likely Portage, definitely Prince William Sound. IFR creeping up across Montague Island. VFR for the Panhandle with marginal conditions for the eastern North Gulf Coast. And for the morning, Tuesday, socked in IFR, Bering Sea, right into the southwest coast and inland there, up into the western Alaska Range, Seward Peninsula IFR, northwest coast, North Slope Arctic coast, all IFR. And now a pretty good zone of IFR forecast into the central Tanana Valley or greater Fairbanks area, right on down into the maybe northern Susitna Valley, Talkeetnas, Prince William Sound, western Copper River Basin, VFR for the Panhandle. And for the afternoon, that area decreases a little bit there, hangs up along the, from southern Cook Inlet and the western, or the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. IFR, marginal for the Madanuska-Susitna Valley, northern Cook Inlet, and southern Copper River Basin. IFR, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound stays. VFR for the Panhandle. VFR breaking out over the central Aleutians. IFR bearing the remainder of the Bering Sea up to Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula south side, Kotzebue Sound, Kobuk, Koyukuk Valley, Yukon Flats VFR, and the western North Slope. Otherwise, some IFR there, central eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And for passes tomorrow, looking good tomorrow there for both Anatuvik and Adigan and the Brooks Range. VFR start to finish, both approaches. And Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR becoming marginal, especially on the western entrance throughout the day. And windy, or rainy though, staying VFR, I believe. And for the windy pass, definitely staying VFR for windy. And Isabel, VFR. Mentasta, another good VFR day there as well. Tanita, VFR. Portage, though, becoming marginal later tonight, and that'll stay that way through the afternoon. Possibly seeing some IFR, possibly slipping up into the eastern entrance there in the late afternoon to early evening. And then for Chilkoot and White, VFR trending toward marginal VFR as the day wears on toward evening. And for the freezing levels, 2,000 feet, that cold upper level low stuck there over the, between St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound, and keeping the freezing levels low there, 2,000 feet. Otherwise, at about 6,000 feet central interior, 8 to 10,000 feet central Aleutians. And icing, good slug of moisture sliding northeastward of that next system pulls some considerable moderate rime icing up in toward the Fox Islands and False Pass area late in the day. And then areas of icing continuing, mixed icing of the very isolated moderate variety there over western Alaska, that upper level low, and then some of that sliding eastward and moisture increasing for the Susitna Valley area, possibly to the Talkeetnas. And for the jet stream, westerlies 100 knots now coming into western Bristol Bay there, 80 knots in across the southwest interior, takes a turn to the southeast there, the Kenai Peninsula, and easterly 65 to 85 knots for the Arctic coast. 9,000 feet, that upper low still pretty energetic and slowly drifting eastward, but not too much. It's going to hang around till probably Wednesday. 45 knot winds around that, and 3,000 feet, 45 to 55 knots eastern Aleutians translates into light to isolated moderate chop there for the Fox Islands, Arctic coast, central and east side.
So the sun, looking here from the ground, seems very constant and quiet. But actually, when we look at it from space, we can see it's quite turbulent and active. Space weather is activity on the sun and in the near-Earth space that can affect our technological infrastructure and society. The sun is constantly spewing out a stream of particles called the solar wind that goes out into the solar system. And it affects us here near Earth, where we're protected by a magnetic field. The interaction between the solar wind and the magnetic field can cause space weather. The Carrington event is the largest storm we've seen in recorded history when we're looking at space weather. But every solar cycle, which repeats about every 11 years, one estimate estimates that there's a 10% chance of getting a large storm like the Carrington event that could impact us here on Earth. But we see solar storms almost all the time. And these storms have an effect on our technological infrastructure. Solar storms can cause activity in Earth's atmosphere and magnetosphere that can damage electrical power grids that power our communities, interrupt radio and satellite communications, and can cause our GPS navigation to fail. NOAA is working with its international partners to ensure that we have different vantage points where we can observe space weather. Our space weather observing infrastructure from space includes the NOAA Discover satellite and the NASA ACE satellite that are stationed upstream of Earth to give us a first buoy measurement of the solar wind. It also includes the ESA-NASA SOHO satellite and the NASA Stereo satellite that image the sun and also make coronagraph measurements of the outer atmosphere of the sun, the corona, that can tell us when large explosions happen off the sun. We also observe the sun and the Earth's magnetic field from the geostationary location with NOAA's GOES. So the way we use the space weather information from satellites and from the ground is to be able to make forecasts and predictions, just like we do with hurricanes and terrestrial weather. We observe the sun and look for activity and see how it develops, and see if it's going to culminate into a large explosion that can affect us here on Earth. NOAA is working with its international partners to expand our observing capability. We're committed to observing along the sun-Earth line. So we're going to do the imaging of the sun and the upstream buoy measurements of the solar wind along the sun-Earth axis. The more we understand about the sun, the more we can prepare for it and become, just like we are a weather-ready nation, become a space weather-ready nation. And as we look forward to humans exploring out into the solar system and advancing our space commerce activities, space weather becomes more and more important.
Here at the Space Weather Prediction Center, we monitor space activity as it's occurring back at the sun, and then we issue out a forecast as well as alerts, watches, and warnings as activity is occurring. A typical space weather event would start with a solar flare back at the sun. That solar flare is short-lived and produces fairly short-lived impacts as well, basically impacting communications on the daylit side of the Earth. However, some solar flares are also associated with a coronal mass ejection or an eruption of plasma that's blasted off the sun and out into space. As forecasters, it's our job to determine if that cloud of plasma is moving towards Earth, and if it comes towards Earth, what the potential impacts may be. Those impacts can range from a fairly low-level storm that may produce the aurora a little bit farther south than usual, or can range up into fairly significant magnetic disturbances that don't happen very often, but when they do, they can impact technologies and infrastructure here on Earth. We provide information to lots of different user groups, from airlines to the electric power grid, to emergency managers, aviation, satellite community, lots of different customers.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the coastal water forecast, pretty light winds there along the southeast coast, the outer coastline. 10 knots, south to southeast, 10 knots on the south coast. Seas right around 6 feet. And then south to east winds are variable at 10 for the north coast with 6-foot seas. Lynn Canal, south winds 20 knots with 4-foot seas. Otherwise, light variable winds with 2 to 4-foot seas for the central southern inside waters. And going to the Tuesday forecast, bounced ahead too far there. On the outer coastline, light west breeze, 10 knots, seas 5 feet, or 5 to 6 foot, or seas running 5 to 6 feet. And then extreme north coast looking at a southerly wind at 10 knots. Otherwise, Lynn Canal southeast at 20, 4-foot seas, and Stevens Pass's Clarence Strait, southerlies 10 knots, seas slide at 2 feet. And for the Prince William Sound area zone, marine zone, east winds 10 knots, seas 2 feet. And the North Gulf Coast, light winds at 10 knots with 5-foot seas from the east and southeast. But small craft advisories still for the Barren Islands, northwesterlies at 25 knots with 6-foot seas. Small craft advisories also Kamishak Bay, west winds at 25 knots. And Cook Inlet small craft advisories, looking for a pretty stiff breeze out of the southwest, 25 to 30 knots, strongest south of the Forelands with seas running 6 to 8 feet. And then for Tuesday, those winds drop off and switch direction. Southeast 15 knots, northern Cook Inlet, east at 15, south of the Forelands. Kamishak Bay, east winds 20 knots with seas at 6 feet, and southeast 20 for the Barren Islands. North Gulf Coast, east winds 20 knots, and Prince William Sound, east winds 15 knots, seas right around 2 feet. And for Kodiak Island, westerlies 30 knots, good for small craft advisories for sure, with seas right around 7 feet, and 25 knot winds, Sitkinak to Castle Cape out of the northwest 25, 8-foot seas, west southwest 20 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, and Bristol Bay small craft advisories, west winds at 25 knots with 6-foot seas. And for Tuesday, southeast 20 on the east side of Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait northeast at 20, and 15 knots out of the north for Bristol Bay with just 3-foot seas, west-northwest at 20 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, and Sitkinak to Castle Cape, small craft advisories for westerlies at 25 knots. On Alaska Island, southeast 25 to 30 knots tomorrow with 5 to 6-foot seas. Unmak Island a little stronger, south to southeast 30 to 35 knots, seas as high as 10 feet, and Adak and Atka, small craft advisories, easterlies at 30 knots, northeast 20 for Amchitka Island, 10 knot winds from the south from the area Shemya to Kiska. And the next day, that area looking at a northwest breeze at 10 knots and about 15 for Amchitka. Adak and Atka, northwest 15 knots, and the Fox Islands, west-northwest 20 knots, seas running 5 to 7 feet. And for the southwest coast, small craft advisories, good westerly flow there across the northern Bering Sea. So St. Matthew Island, northern Bering, west 25, right into the coastline. Lighter wind, St. Lawrence Island, west at 15. Norton Sound, variable at 10. And the Pribilof, southwest 15, seas 7 feet. And then for Tuesday, Norton Sound, southerlies 20 knots. Small craft advisories back in the picture for St. Lawrence Island, west at 25. And southwest 20 for the northern Bering Sea. and 15-knot winds for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island from the northwest and southwest north of Nunivak Island. Westerlies at 20 for the Pribilofs. And the eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, brisk wind advisories for 25-knot winds out of the east, about 20 knots there in the central coast. West side, west 20 knots, seas up to 4 feet. And northeast at 15 from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson to Wales, westerlies at 10 knots. And then for Tuesday, brisk wind advisories continue there for the now central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast for 25-knot winds on the central coast. East side there, 30 knots, 25-knot winds, small craft advisories, western Arctic coast with 3-foot seas, southeast at 20 from Cape Beaufort to Wales with seas right around 3 feet. And for tonight, again, areas of low clouds and fog for the Arctic coast into the North Slope, but dry. Isolated showers possible there around Arctic Village and maybe the Koyukuk Valley area, northeast interior, on down along that trough axis into the Talkeetna Mountains, maybe the Chugach, but nothing kind of tapering off. And then that upper level low keeps it cool and showery there from Kotzebue Sound into the Nulato Hills along the lower Yukon River Valley out to Nunivak Island, and the next system spreading rain into the central Aleutians. We'll see tomorrow spreads it to the Alaska Peninsula, and then on Tuesday into south central Alaska and the southwest interior areas, with Kodiak Island probably seeing the heaviest amounts of rain, but mostly sunny for the southeast coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.